It's early.
Early?
I think we have...
Yeah, this is probably would be considered one of the fastest pre-show. My wieners are done, by the way.
Yummy. Tasty.
I had 3 wieners, and like whatever I put in my mouth, it was like 2 inches thick. So.
Or...
I mean, I had to include the bun, so.
Uh-huh.
It still sounds dirty. Anyways, let's just get this show on the road, okay?
Okay.
It's August 13th, 2017. I'm Jeff.
Who's your bear? That's right. I am your bear.
I'm Damon.
I'm Chester.
This room is a pigsty, and you're a dirty pig boy.
And that makes me Gary.
Don't hurt nobody with your bad self.
And welcome to Couples Out Loud, the Bear Podcast of Indeterminate Length, episode number 427. And I just had wieners. And we also have a chess!
Hey, what's up?
They're over there in the corner.
Live from the dungeon today. So.
Oh, yeah. Like, he's right there. I can reach into his dungeon and maybe... Oh, okay.
The half-unpacked dungeon is still being put together.
You are halfway more complete than I am.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so, where's it? Let's go right into this. So, remember back a few weeks ago when I had like I was down and we did the thing and the stuff? Well, just
That wasn't specific enough.
so there was an update to Windows. My computer rebooted while I was at work, and I come home and my computer's not on. Maybe there was a power outage. I think it was an update though. And I tried booting it up. My computer gave me a few beeps and didn't boot. Started again. It started again, did some updates, and then when it rebooted, didn't boot. And I'm like, oh, fuck this. I'm too tired from work. So for 2, maybe 3 days, I didn't fix my computer. But fortunately, all I had to do, the only thing that I had to do was unplug a cable and plug it back in. And I booted the computer. I booted right... Well, actually, finished updating and booted right up, so...
So you literally jiggled a wire and...
No, I literally pulled it out and put it back in. I didn't jiggle it. Jiggle it would mean it was still there.
Turn it back on again.
Yeah, so it's the same type of thing, except it wasn't power off, power on. It was just take out, put back on, then just turn it on. So if I just did power off, power on, it still wouldn't work. So I still had an extra step. So there.
Nice. Cool.
And that's pretty much the big stuff that happened to me. But in the meantime, I still played some stuff on the iPad. So still did some gaming stuff. But of course, yesterday I couldn't stand a full day without computer. So I just fixed it. And
Sweet.
we're back again. Everything's fine. Everything's fine here. How are you?
So it's nice that you had a little time away from the computer. I think sometimes that can be important.
Well, considering I have my iPad, I don't know if that really counts. I was watching stuff on the Apple TV, so I can still do some stuff. I just couldn't raid or do stuff in World of Warcraft or anything like that. So.
Oh.
And Andre's right. Plugging just solves most things. Damon, what's going on with you?
Wow. So last night, the leather group I belong to, Scorpius, hosted a jock night at Argos Leather Bar in Dayton, Ohio. It was an amazing time. There were a lot of people there. There were a lot of sexy guys running around in just jock straps and jockey underwear and what have you. I got to see Brady. I got to see David Dualwood. I got to see oh gosh, who else would you guys know? I think that's about it. Well, several other people who have been around, and we hosted a little jock contest, which was kind of fun. The winner is Paul, who was a local person in Dayton. And it was awesome, fun times. I actually, in preparation for our evening, our conversation, I took the opportunity to do some flogging last night of some people who were willing participants. So definitely enjoyed that. Really good time, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself, and I think a lot of the crowd really made things better. I love our bar nights, but sometimes it's always been weird because sometimes especially when we were doing them in Cincinnati, there wasn't a whole lot of like interest or participation. Like, oh, it's them. We'll just have a night and do stuff. Since we've been doing stuff in Dayton, and no harm to Cincinnati, but people are coming and enjoying it and having fun and participating in some capacity. Granted, not everyone that was in the jock did the contest, but there were plenty of people just walking around in their jock straps, and which for the random person who might happen to walk into the bar, that might be a plus. So yeah, it was good. It was a good time.
I have a
lot of
question.
fun. You have a question, yes?
How did you get away with that?
How did we get away with it?
Isn't it illegal to wear a jock strap in Ohio?
Sure, I guess.
Well, kind of. Yeah, I mean, I think it's more of lack of anything else but the jock strap, but I can understand that.
It was. I honestly can't tell you. I remember some of the rule, and I can't really say anything else. We were somehow able to do it, and no one said anything, and the owners of the bar didn't say anything. So there's that. But I mean, there were a lot of people, and there were some people who were wearing some back butt coverage, but there were many who were not. So
I am certainly not complaining about.
I mean, I'm not
walking
either.
around in jock straps. I'm just curious because we went to a bar night on Friday and they told us absolutely not. It's against the law to wear a jock strap.
So here's this is my take on it, and this is completely me speaking out of my ass because I'm obviously not an Ohio resident. I wasn't at any of these events. I think it just comes down to whether or not anyone wants to apply their behavior to the legality of such things. I mean, I look at it this way, for instance, Claw happens in Cleveland. It's in Ohio. We know when we go to Claw, there's stipulations about it's 2 inches of fabric has to cover the crack of the rear end or whatever. But the reality is, you can state that, but then it's up to whoever's there to enforce said coverage rule. So, I mean, it's kind of that's also kind of like saying everyone needs to wear a swimsuit in the pool. But if there's no hotel staff at a hotel pool, you know what I mean? There's no lifeguard, and it's only, the people that are manning it, technically, people could be naked in the pool. So
it's not just enforcement, it's also complaint. If you're in an environment where people aren't going to complain, the folks who are in charge of enforcing it aren't going to show up and enforce it. So.
Right. I was
So
just curious because,
Yeah.
we go to Claw and they tell us that at Claw that
Yeah.
you can't wear a jock strap.
And I think given, I'll put it like this. So just to kind of really quickly, like I agree with Chess that no one was really complaining and nothing really was said. So I'm thinking that was the case, but also realize that this was a local bar, event. Nothing was really like. I mean, we broadcast on Facebook, and I haven't posted any pictures yet. But again, no one said anything. Whereas Claw is this big, massive, like a whole bunch of people coming from all over the place.
More
And it's at a hotel, and it's one of those things where I could see that potentially being an issue. And Columbus is the capital city of the state, so definitely close eyes on probably watching things. So that's just me thinking out of my ass. So who knows? It was a fun night. No one said anything. There were plenty of no 2 inches. I will. There were no 2-inch coverings. God damn it! Thanks, Chess.
Nobody
Yeah.
had a gaping 2-inch gap.
Oh God. Oh.
Thigh gap.
Yeah. So it was. Yeah. I don't know. Chester, how are you? What's going on with you?
I got almost all of I'm done with the essentials for getting the apartment put together as far as moving is concerned. I don't need to get any more furniture, thank fucking God. Because I swear to God, I'm going to shoot myself if I have to go into IKEA again. So now it's just unpacking the small things and trying to find home for those small things. And, the finishing touches, like hanging up pictures and artwork and that type of stuff. The thing that I don't really care if I get to or not. I will get to it when I get to it. But for the most part, everything's done. Friday night, Evan and I joined Dozer and Burlick for the Cap City Pups annual function called Dog Days of Summer. It's basically a pup night that is put on by Cap City Pups, and it's sponsored by Trident International. And they do... I don't necessarily want to call it a demo because nobody's up there teaching. They're just doing it.
Yeah.
And anybody can join. So Dozer was doing fire cupping and other fire play. There was a dark room set up out in the back patio of the bar.
Wait, what? Hold on. What?
It was a tent. It was a tent. So somehow they got away with doing this. But they put up a tent in the back area of the bar. And I went out there, and an incident happened. And at the time, I was mortified. Like, it really shook me to the core. I'm over it now that I've processed what had happened, and I talked to a couple people about it happening and let them know, you guys made me feel this way when I walked in there, and it wasn't comfortable. And then yesterday, Evan and I were on our way to a gaming party here in town, and we walk outside, and I noticed that somebody had smashed in the window of my Jeep.
Boo.
So that was pleasant. It was like, hey, welcome to the neighborhood.
Fuck. That sucks. Yeah.
It's going to happen. It's part of living in the city.
I guess. Sorry, I noticed that I saw the couple of the issues on your Facebook, and I was definitely like, that's definitely sucky. I don't know what all happened with regards to the darkroom incident. I'm still kind of trying to wrap my head around a dark tent and how they were able to pull that off at the bar, because I know the bar, and I'm not saying that things haven't happened there, but it just seems kind of odd.
I think it has something to do with the fact that they were not actually selling alcohol out there. and that's how they were able to get away with it. Same thing with the bar was Club Diversity, and again, this is where they said, you can wear jocks, but only in certain areas of the bar. But if you're in this area, absolutely not. You have to be covered up. So I'm that's why I questioned it when you said that people were running around in jocks. So
well, again, I think it all it all depends on things. I'm assuming, given that they were saying in certain spots, certain areas, probably more where they were maybe where they were serving alcohol or something along those lines. Who knows? Because the reality is
exactly. I think that it has something to do with the fact that they serve alcohol and food in that area of the bar.
Food. That's
we
important.
were definitely not in those areas of the bar.
Yeah. But I love the Cap City Pups night. I went last year and had a really good time. I probably would have gone this year, but it would have been hard to get up there. So.
It was good for me overall, and I was looking forward to finally going out to a bar night with Dane and Joe. It was odd in the sense of people were coming up to me and talking to me and know things about me, and I don't have a clue who they are, and I don't like that. It makes me a little uncomfortable, which is surprising considering I put all my shit out there on Tumblr.
I think that
You're famous.
I think honestly, that what it is that I get it. Like there's a reputation, and I think that's part of the potential issue is that yes, you've put all your stuff out there, but all of your stuff could be potentially misleading because reality is you're not always that blah blah blah. Like you've mentioned several times on the show before that although you're kind of the word just hit my head, left my head, exhibitionist-ish, there's still some privacy to your life.
Right. It wasn't so bad when it was people that I've interacted with, through Dane or Joe, like Dane's friend Maitreya.
Yes.
I've never met her. I've only ever interacted with her online. So when I was introduced to her, I'm like, I had a connection already, even though I've never met her before and never talked to her one-on-one or anything. I already had a connection. But there were other people at the bar that had shown up and they're like, oh, you must be Chester. And then they start asking me questions and I'm like, how do you know this information about me? That to me is a little unsettling.
Yeah.
Did they ever reveal, Chester, how they knew things about you?
Mostly through Dane. Because Dane has mentioned me, or they see things pop up on Dane's news feed with me tagged in it or something.
Okay. That would have been my immediate presumption was I probably would have turned to Dozer and Burlick and been like, what have you two been saying? Like, what's... What is my sudden reputation
it wasn't
I know
anything,
nothing about?
Nobody ever said anything questionable to the point of, well, that's a little bit too much information for somebody that I don't know to know. It wasn't anything like that. It was just, it was kind of like when I was at Manchester Pride. I'm in the middle of Manchester, England, and a guy comes up to me and he says, hey, how was your trip to Scotland? And the first thing in my mind is, who the fuck are you? How do you know I went to Scotland? And why do you have an American accent? and I asked him that. I was like, it was good. Who are you? And then he's like, oh, my name is blah, blah, blah. I follow your Tumblr. And then, it kind of made a little bit more sense.
All right.
People need to do more of like, hey, you must be so-and-so. I follow your Tumblr. I'm so-and-so. How was your trip to Scotland? Would probably have been a better thing.
if these people would have preempted it, their initial greeting with, "Hey, I know you this way," then I would have been
Yeah.
totally okay with it.
Well, sometimes that's great. Sometimes it can be really wonderful because that's how I met Jim. I'll tell the story another time.
Yeah, I think what we're kind of finding a little bit is these are the only words that come to mind. I don't think is the right way to phrase it. We have a odd, like, extremely low level celebrity kind of taste of things, meaning people are aware of you, they know of you somehow, be it through things you post online or things they hear from other people, stuff that you do, and they approach you, but they don't give you, kind of the CV of you to know how they know you. So that you're just kind of like, who are you? Why do you know these things about me? I've kind of adjusted slightly to that. I mean, putting on over a decade of an event and now being on the podcast for, a handful of years, I just presume those are the two main things way people know me. And that helps, but still doesn't settle, the nerving thing about, oh, you know things about me that I'm not sure I knew people knew about me or that you pay attention to, because they'll reflect back to you what they hold on to. So I mean, but it's not
Right.
to me. That's a parallel path. Like, I was corporate trainer. People would come up to me. They'd see me in a store or something, and they'd be like, "Oh, hey Gary, blah blah blah," and I'd be like, "Hi," and I would kind of get called out. They'd be like, "You don't remember me?" And I'm like, "Not exactly." And they're like, "Oh, well, you taught me, this class and this and that." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I actually had a person kind of get mad about this, that I didn't remember them. And unfortunately, I had to be real with them for a second and be like, just so you know, like, in the course of a year when we were really busy, I probably trained upwards of like 15 to 1700 people. And the brain doesn't have a capacity to remember, like, the nuances and identities of all those individual people. So unfortunately, if you were not a problem child or like a stellar individual that stood out to me, then you kind of fell in the bell curve in the middle. And so that's why I don't really remember you. But
You ain't
goes
no
over-
shining star, Snowflake.
So yeah, I just kind of leave that as it is. But I have a feeling, Chester, you're going to go through this experience many times moving to CMH, because you're now in a location that you only ever visited. And so you're going to be integrated into the local scene, but the local scene knew of you long before you arrived, thanks to your
Right.
friends and that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like if you had been to Dayton, you probably would have had somewhat similar situation. I feel like, because Brady was there, David was there, there are several other people that I think either in through that or through like circles of friends kind of thing. There would have
Right.
probably been the same thing. So Gary,
Yeah.
how about you?
Yeah, I have. I know that it's going to happen, and it's going to continue to happen for a while. I'm prepared for it. It just,
Catches
at the
you off
moment
guard.
when it happened, it caught me off guard.
Yeah, it's a challenge to get, integrated into a space with new people, and you're not sure how that works, let alone if they already are aware of you. I mean, like, well, when we were in Dayton, a week ago, Damon, someone
Mhm.
introduced me to someone else who had never met me before, and like, oh, this is Gary, and you can see like no register, and they're like, he does the podcast, he puts on trench fur, like they're kind of running through the things to like connect, like get the light
Yeah.
bulbs to like connect or whatever, and I feel for the other person because I'm kind of like, it's okay. Like, you don't need to know who I am. You don't need to be like enamored by me or whatever. It just kind of cracks me up. I'm like, it's important to the person introducing, but
Yeah.
it's all right. So it goes both ways in that case. So for those of you that are on the show, you already know, my bestie Drew came into town for the weekend as a getaway. He wanted to see the Italian festival here in Erie. And so we ran around town. We went to a bunch of different places, did things. So this is the conundrum of the city that I live in. There is good and disappointing foods in my city, and sometimes you kind of don't know what you're going to get. And so that's why we were having a discussion. Drew and I talked, and I said, perhaps I've eaten out too much in too many cities in different places, because now I feel like I'm a bit of a pain in the ass about certain quality of food that I like. And more often than not,
You're becoming
my
a
city is
food snob?
Oh, he already was.
I don't want to. I don't.
Okay, fine. You're a foodie.
I'm a food
Here's-
snob. I have no problem telling people I'm a snob.
I just feel that the classic Americana, cuisine that people enjoy a lot is just not something I'm down with. So
You don't care for Olive Garden? Is that what you're saying?
Snob.
I have eaten Olive Garden. I have eaten
Knob.
way better Italian in my life. So
Snob.
I've
will
had
not-
way better Italian too.
we're not talking about your 10-inch sausage that so no, I mean it's just so. For instance, we went to the Italian festival, right? So you have to get tickets. You have to buy tickets and redeem the tickets to get the stuff. That's how festivals are. So we go and we do that, and I was a little pissy because they have this big menu sign, and it tells you what all the foods are that are in the food tent and how many tickets are each item, which is helpful because you can say, oh, it's a 50-cent per ticket ratio. So you have to figure out, all right, 2 tickets is $1, blah blah blah. Well, they had a dessert item listed on the menu at the ticket tent, and I asked the staff at the ticket tent, which are mostly older women, so I'm thinking these, no offense, older Italian ladies should know what the hell this item is.
Mhm.
Nobody knew what it was. The younger girl with a smartphone looks it up on fucking Google and tells me what it is. So I get tickets for that dessert. We go in, we're getting all the food. We get to the dessert section, and guess what? They don't have.
The dessert.
They don't have. They don't have Zeppoli. They've never had Zeppoli in like 3 years because it requires a deep fryer and something else and blah blah blah. So when you get to the actual table, it's crossed off the sheet, but it's not crossed off on the menu boards out at the ticket.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So even Drew was like, "Well, why don't you just try to turn the tickets back in?" I'm like, "Seriously? I'm gonna go back and be like, can I have my money back?" I was like, "We're not dealing with this." So and then I got Italian cream cake, and it kind of didn't look like what I expected, but I thought, don't be judgmental. Like, wait later. So I got it home late last night. I was highly disappointed. I think I said to you, Chester, I was like, an Italian cream cake will never have Cool Whip on it. Not in a million.
Oh, hell no. No.
I don't remember you saying that to me, but no, I agree with you. You need to be making that stuff from scratch.
Well, that's what I thought. The whole point of going to this festival is, that they're making shit. That there are women in kitchens slaving, and 6 weeks.
Got little old Nona in the back.
Woman, get in that kitchen and make me a thing.
Oh.
For clarification, that is not what I'm saying. I'm just speaking to the culture of my area, where the Russian Orthodox festival, the German festival, the Italian festival, the Polish festival, that's what happens. These little community areas, the women involved in the church auxiliaries spend weeks preparing shit, by hand at length. So when I go to a festival and I ask for something, I expect it to be, I don't know, authentic-ish, like, to my local community. So, yeah, I was disappointed in the cake. The cannoli was very good, though. So I will give them props. They at least got one damn thing right. But
Leave the gun, take the cannoli.
So, yeah, it's just so the food was kind of like hit and miss here and there. I was very happy to take Drew. We went to a couple local places. Icing on the Lake, I'm so proud of them. I was one of their first customers, probably in about the first 2 months they opened, and they moved to a new location. They've expanded staff. They do a ton of different stuff, and it's always like spot on. There's a new business that just opened up called Pop Luck, and it's a popcorn shop. So they have like 8 different flavors of popcorn that they make on premises. And they were very busy because they just opened, I think, like a week ago, which is not usually when I stop in, but I wanted them to see it. So it was good. So some things were good, some things not so much. So yeah.
Well,
But-
that sounds fun.
It was a bit of a food adventure weekend with him in town, and it was a good time. So, but he's now on the road back, heading back, and he stopped and got Rita's Italian Ice before he left town because we have a Rita's Italian Ice shop here in Erie, and it's like almost physically the closest one to him in Toledo, which is insane. And he's a bit of an addict about Italian Ice, apparently. Who knew?
Good to know.
I like gelato. That's good.
I love gelato. There's a place in there's a Findlay Market here in Cincinnati. There's a place here called Dojo Gelato. They make awesome gelato. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I love gelato too, but unfortunately, Barbara's Gelateria in the Little Italy section of town closed, and they said that they were going to reopen like in a new location, and they never did. So I'm mad at them because I was like, how could you have Italian ice and gelato and sorbetto, like fresh made on premises daily? And as much as I know, they were doing well as a business, and then that was it. So I don't know. Some things happen, and then I just feel like the community loses out. But enough about that. What about you, Chas? What's been going on for you?
Well, a lot of work. One work thing that might be of interest. I can't talk a whole lot about it, but for one of my cases, I actually got to employ Miss Tammy as an expert in a hearing.
Ooh.
She is an advanced practice registered nurse, and in a particular area that was relevant to what I needed to put on in a hearing. Basically, years and years ago when I started trial practice, she said, "Hey, if you ever need me as an expert, here I am." And it never came up. And then in this new job, here was a perfect example of a chance to use her, and I contacted her. And so I actually got to question Miss Tammy for like 45 minutes on the stand one day. So that was good. She did really, really well. It was a great time. We haven't got a ruling yet, but it was a good experience. I can't really talk a whole lot about it, obviously. Other than that, last weekend, my husband and I went to a campground and camped out, and it was good. And we both got slightly sunburnt at the pool. We're around a lot of other fun folks, and good time. Go ahead.
Was that Stag Run?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was Tri-State's leather event.
Yeah.
I didn't do a whole lot with like the demo stuff there, but it was a good weekend. There was a lot of fun people there. Got to see Ron putting it on, and some other folks. So it's a good time. Very relaxing. Like I said, we both got very slightly sunburnt, which for my husband meant that like all his freckles started to grow together because he doesn't really tan. Wow. But other than that, cleaning up. Part of the reason that I'm actually able to be in the dungeon to film today is because I cleaned up in here a little bit yesterday. So domesticity abounds, work is busy, and yeah, that's basically all that's been going on lately, I think.
Nice.
I cannot wait to be in the same space as you and Miss Tammy because I want to get the lowdown. I don't want the deets. I want the lowdown on the experience of her being on the stand and you being a lawyer. There's something about that of like.
Afterwards, I did talk to her. I said, "You're like maybe the only person in my like leather folk circles who has like literally like seen me doing my job as a lawyer at any length." There on my YouTube, I do have one video of me doing a habeas hearing about 5 or 6 years ago, just so people could see me being a lawyer. But like I said, that's 5 or 6 years ago, and so it was. People can see it if they want to. I think it's like called like Chess Does Lawyer Stuff or some shit like that.
Sweet.
I'm so intrigued by this concept of you being, leather family and knowing about DS relationships, and then suddenly to put it into a work context in which like you're.
Yeah. It was difficult. It was difficult because I'm used to calling her Miss Tammy, and she has a last name that is not common, and so I had to ask Miss Tammy how to pronounce her last name properly. I had never. I'd said it out loud before, but I don't think I'd ever like confirmed the pronunciation with her, and so it was odd to call her Miss So and So as opposed to Miss Tammy there on the stand.
I know. It's so funny. I can't remember. Oh.
But we kept it all very professional, and it was all good. So went out to have lunch with her afterwards. We had Italian.
Seems to
there you go.
be the cuisine du jour right now.
Just out of curiosity, is it conflict of interest because you know Miss Tammy on a somewhat intimate level?
No.
To have her as a witness? That's not a conflict of interest?
No. Whose interest would be conflicted?
I have no idea.
Yeah, like it was nothing but good for my client, and it didn't benefit me personally to have her there. Didn't.
Sweet.
And she was an expert witness, not
She
an
was
actual.
she was a qualified expert, and she gave her qualified expert opinion, and she didn't say everything that was like, oh great. She just said all the magical words that makes my case awesome, but she said enough. She said a lot of good stuff for us, and we were able to get it on the record, so it was good. We'll see how it goes.
Nice. Good luck.
Mm.
You didn't see it, but I just thumbs up the camera. So let's go quickly into this. Chester, what did you do?
I had an accident.
Oh no! What kind of
Okay,
accident?
Listen up, kiddos, because this is a teaching moment. So in the process of moving, I had to buy all new things, just random stuff, because I no longer have them. One of the things that I had to purchase was a beard trimmer.
Oh! I think I see where this is going.
I went into the bathroom, got out my brand new beard trimmer, was doing my sideburns, and I was adjusting the guard and doing a little bit more of my sideburns, and then all of a sudden the entire guard slid right down to the razor, and I took a huge chunk right out of the side here. And I'm like, fuck. So I had to reset the guard and do all of it. I can't pull off goatee.
I did something like that while I was living in Japan. I'd loaned my trimmer to somebody else, and I was always set on guard number 6. And when they gave it back, it was on 0, and I was in a hurry one day.
Oh.
And I picked it up, and I'm like, oh, I'm too fluffy. I gotta, grab it. I'm like, oh shit, that was a lot too much noise because I was still half asleep. And I look at it, and I'm like, oh crap. So it was like goatee. At least it was on the side, not like right in the middle or some crap like that.
So folks, always check your guards, check your trimmers, and check the numbers, and then always go on. If nothing else, start on the sides, because if you fuck up, you can at least trim it down to a little, or if you need to, it's all gone.
To be fair, I did check the size. I started at the highest because it's brand new. I don't know what the range is, and that's where I started. And I slowly worked it down. The problem is I must have had my finger on the catch to make it stop. But whatever the case is, it's when I was going up my cheek, the guard slipped back.
Oh,
and that's where I'm saying this is a educational tip. Make sure you check that.
wow.
Yeah, I always adjust the guard first, and then whenever I'm using it, I'm usually just using the lower half of it, so my hand is away from the guard adjusting thing. So it doesn't actually adjust unless I actually want it to. So that's what I do. Learning moment, as we said.
And I don't need one.
Because you can't grow shit.
Beard. I can grow this, and this is about it.
And it looks fine. It looks very nice.
I like this. I'm fine. Actually, I need to trim it down because there's a lot of it now. Anyway, moving right along. Let's move right along.
You can't see it, but my goatee's getting kind of long too. But that's what I was planning on. So, anyways, stuff. But not. We're doing this.
Now, whoever thought we'd be doing commercials?
I know I sure as heck didn't.
Being that we're a smaller scale podcast, we don't have advertisers knocking down our door to give us money, and that's okay.
Which is why we want to take a moment and tell you about 2 really great ways you can support Cubs Out Loud.
Over the past 9 years, COL has produced hundreds of audio episodes, and now we have matching video episodes for you to enjoy.
This year, we introduced the new COL logo and launched our new merch store over at zazzle.com/cubsoutloud.
Or you can also use the COL merchandise link on our podcast website to pull up the online store.
Here you can take a look through a range of products, including t-shirts, hats, poker chips, underwear, backpacks, and various other things with the COL logo on them.
And keep an eye out for new things to be added based on your interests and requests.
We typically can be found showing these great items off in the video stream of our shows.
Also, to help with our new format, we're doing YouTube video shows that help create the audio version. We have a GoFundMe campaign underway at gofundme.com/COLstream.
This campaign allows us to afford upgrading the PC that Jeff uses to produce our shows. Plus, a better computer means better quality streams.
And thanks in advance for not only listening to Cubs Out Loud, but helping support the podcasts too. Hooray!
Now, I said this in a comment to a Facebook post, but I'm going to comment again. I think that Chess would look sexy in a COL tank top.
I was wearing a Bear Underground tank top in my douchey gym selfie the other day. And he's like, "Is that a Bear Underground tank top?" And I was just like, "Yes, it is." He's like, "Now you just need a COL one."
Wink.
Wink.
I'm wearing a Cubs Out Loud shirt. Oh, but this is a one-of-a-kind shirt, unfortunately. But you can get a similar one on the COL store. But all it is the little bear, just bear.
We'd never be able to tell the difference because we can't see you.
Well,
everybody else can,
can.
and you could watch this in the after show.
Wow.
Hey, just so you know, Jeff, I don't know if we can make this happen or not, but Drew did have a suggestion on a new apparel item for the online merchandise store. Is the work shirt style, if you know what I'm talking about. Kind of like the Dickie. It's like a short sleeve, but a button down. Usually has like one or two pockets. Type thing.
Like
He
a
said,
uniform shirt?
yes. He said it would be cool if you had one like with the logo across the back or something. And I was
Well,
like,
like
oh.
a bowling shirt would be good too, with the big vertical.
'Cause I know you can get polos.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's a thing that Zazzle has in its inventory right now or not, but we might be able to at least make a suggestion to them on new apparel ideas if they don't have it. But anyways, that's his suggestion.
Sweet.
Sometimes you can even look into the polo shirt that Sigma got. Automatically put our logo in the pocket. So that's something.
Good to know.
Yeah, but I think I understand. It's kind of like the mechanic button-up shirt. I think that's what you're kind of referring to.
Yeah, it's a short sleeve uniform style shirt. I mean, you could call it a mechanic shirt. It's sort of not quite the same, but similar to like a bowling shirt. We usually call them like brewery shirts. Like a lot of brew pubs now have them, as opposed to like a t-shirt or a tank or a hoodie. It's like the next thing,
Yeah.
basically people who work like in an industrial trade type, whatever job.
Yeah, I'm not really actually seeing that they have that type of shirt that they can do. So.
Is there a patch? Is there like a sew-on patch or a iron-on patch?
Ooh,
That would be cool too. You could put that on any shirt.
there you go.
Good to know.
Patches.
And then someone will be asking for enameled pins.
Speaking of enamel pins, Gary, the Kermit the Frog T pin has gotten a lot of compliments. So thank you for getting that to me. People fucking love that pin. They're like, "Where did you get it?" And I go, "Oh, well, a friend got it for me, blah, 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 blah." And they're like, "Oh, it's so awesome. It's perfect." Like,
You know what?
so.
You know what I think that is?
Yeah, that is feedback. Good segue there, Jeff.
You're
Speaking of
welcome.
Speaking of feedback, we've got some new YouTube subscribers. So welcome Andre Ferreira, who is actually chatting with us live right now, and Caden Wilson. And then we got a comment on COL425 from RJ, Randy Stratton. He says, American Gods is done for the season, and yes, the sex scenes were hot.
So now
Yeah.
I can probably see if I can do the free thing so I can watch it, binge watch the entire season, and then get that taken care of. Although there may be another season, so I may need to wait until that is, and then just binge watch both seasons. I don't know. Maybe it'll come to Netflix. It's on Stars. Highly doubtful. Okay, enough of that. So Gary, what's been going on over in Facebook land?
Over in Facebook, there was a post from when we were at MJ's in Dayton over a week ago. I had put down posted up. God, how do you say that anymore? I'm so old, I don't know. Anyways, there was a picture taken and it got posted to Cubs Out Loud, and it said co-host Damon Gary and recurring guest Ray, aka Karen for Cox. Took a quick selfie at the Gem City Bear 2017 contest. Congrats to the winner, Benjamin Benton. And he replied back and said, thank you. So,
Yay!
Yay.
Yeah, that was a fun time.
That's
It was. It was a good bunch of fun. Very long night, but good fun.
Oh, speaking of which, happy 30th birthday, Ray.
Oh yeah, that was like yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah,
well, it was the 11th.
The Friday.
And apparently he's got an online campaign going with hashtag Dirty30. Ray's Dirty30. I see a
So
quirky
young.
enamel pin.
Yep. It's Ein from Cowboy Bebop.
Sweet. Oh, I love that band.
Here's a little man riding a piece of pizza.
It's a naked man riding a piece of pizza.
He is. He's got a beard, too.
Sweet.
Interesting.
Wait, after the show, you send me a link to get one of those.
I got it.
Oh.
As a gift.
Anyway,
Because Dane loves pizza. The other night after the bar, we went to Late Night Slice and we were looking at all the buttons, and I posted a picture of it on my Facebook. But there is a button there that says "Daddy" with a slice of pizza,
Sweet.
and he ended up buying one.
Nice.
I'll
So-
try to find it.
so Chester, what's been going on over in the tumblers?
We had 2 new followers, Bucking for Bears and Big and Zesty.
Which for some
That's
reason, whenever I go to Big and Zesty, it says time to delete my Tumblr. Bye, guys. Oh.
Yeah, and there's nothing there, but he
Aw.
just followed us, so maybe it's just he doesn't post anything. Maybe he's just somebody who follows other people's Tumblrs and doesn't post anything.
Possible.
Well, thanks for following us, Cutie Patootie, because at least there's a profile headshot at the top, so we know,
Thanks,
in theory,
Kate.
what he looks like. Yeah,
Mhm.
Speaking of cuties.
nice.
Sweet.
Speaking of cuties, and we're going into this.
No, but the other one.
I don't know where that came from, but it was in our files. Let's talk about Kink.
Sweet.
Gary.
So.
So, for those of you that are new to us, either via YouTube or just new to Cubs Out Loud altogether, we have different series of topic shows that we run, and we have one called LTAS, which is Let's Talk About Sex, and then we kind of did one as a adjunct to that or parallel that's called LTAK, which is Let's Talk About Kink. So we have folks on, and we talk about things that are related to the leather kink communities, and we've asked Chess, our oftentimes recurring guest, to join us because today's topic is flogging.
Survey says
You get impact play. So, yeah, it was kind of odd to me that I realized of all the things we've covered in LTAK, we just kind of skipped this one somehow. I mean, there's lots of stuff I know we haven't gotten to, but it just popped in my head one day. I was like, oh, I don't think that's even on the list anywhere, and things that we wanted to get to. So we decided to ask a couple people about coming on. So Chess is with us today, and we're going to run through talking about flogging specifically in terms of impact play. We've talked about some of this stuff before with other items, but we're just going to kind of run through a couple of different areas on the topic regarding descriptions of what people would think of when it comes to that, the relationship that takes place, and then get into implements, the items that are used with that kind of thing. So starting us off, the thing I think people need to know if they're kind of new to this is that impact play is a broad term, and there's a lot of stuff that can fall under that, and flogging is one example of that. But I'm going to leave this more to like Chester and Damon as my co-hosts to kind of get into maybe explaining what the others would be.
Well, so impact play is, in general terms, is something hitting the body. So that could be a flog, it could be a paddle, it could be a hand, it could be a fist, it could be pretty much, well, a lot of different things, as long as it's striking the body for the sake of, well, kinky play, in a sense. To keep it in general terms. So flogging is a type of impact play, usually done with floggers and other potential implements. That was my very quick and dirty general. Like,
if I were to rattle off a list of things that would be under that umbrella, it's not just floggers. You'll also hear people talking about caning.
Yes.
Show and tell time. Caning falls under that. Spanking and paddling, which really are two different things.
yes.
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 You said show and tell.
Yeah, there it is. Also things like whips, single tail whipping, single tails, and then of course the variety of flogging. Yeah, fists are also, I would separate that from like hand spanking because the experience is different. I have some lead-weighted gloves that are, I think, actually in the other room that are sometimes helpful for that sort of thing. So all of that rough body play where you're striking the body. But yeah, all of that fits under the umbrella of impact.
All right, so I have a quick question that just popped in my head because you guys were talking about like fists, and you mentioned the weighted gloves chest. I don't know if this is considered part of the kink or not. I've seen media of two guys together in which a guy is punching the chest of the other person.
Sure.
But it's not. I wouldn't have necessarily called it a play session because it's about fucking. Like there's a sex thing about it. It's not like in a dungeon or something.
It's still I think under the umbrella. I mean, whether it's like, hey, I've got my, I'm balls deep in you and I'm smacking your ass while I'm doing it. That's still an inclusion, like that element of impact. Or if it's, hey, we've wrestled around and, I've got you on your back and I'm in you and I'm just punching your chest while I'm doing you. Or your thighs. Thighs are really good when you're kind of mid-fucking kind of situation.
Yes. Yeah.
All of that, I would classify all that as there's still impact play involved, even if it's
you're doing something else
involved as like in combination with the sex.
Yeah, I've seen. Oh, go ahead.
If you really want to get picky, I suppose that like it doesn't just have to be your fists. It can be like, here, I'm going to hit you with my shoulder, or hey, I'm hitting you with my whole body. A lot of the rough body impacts play can be kind of meshed in with fucking or whatever else you're doing.
I've seen it often with like built like muscle guys that are doing it as a form of like I'm generalizing obviously, but like asserting dominance or like just showing strength and showing strength definitely.
So, I think it's another so without like co-opting like our descriptions here, like this is a good place to talk about, I think, like the three biggest sensory terms, like kind of sensations that you are going to get out of impact, and is like thud, sting, and bite. Like those are generally how I talk about them. Thud is a more heavy bodily impact. It spreads down into the muscle or the body. Things like fists definitely are going to give that. Usually that's contrasted with things like sting, which everybody kind of understands what that feels like. If you slap your hand on your leg and you feel that kind of after effect, that stingy feeling afterwards, that's generally, if people say the word sting, that's what they're talking about. You're going to get that in open hand. You're going to get that in paddling. You're going to get that anywhere where you've got a relatively large amount of surface area versus the density of the tool. So most of the sensation stays right on top on the surface. Whereas thud, it tends to be a denser tool with slightly less in the way of surface area that's striking. And then bite, usually you're talking about something that is dense but has a very low amount of surface area so that it penetrates deeply, but it's a very sharp feeling. And that can be things like canes or sometimes rules or rulers. Depending on the whip that you're using, it can be whips. So not all sting is equal, not all bite is equal, not all thud is equal. Those are just kind of descriptive terms for the sensations that are produced by different tools. And different people like different stuff. Just because you like thud doesn't mean you're going to like sting.
Yeah.
So
we have a question from Andre. He asked, does it have to hurt to be considered impact?
Hell no.
No. I agree. It's literally hitting the body. It's not necessary. And for a lot of people, flogging is considered pleasurable.
Yeah. You can do stuff like, hell, if you want to do really heavy shiatsu massage, chop into somebody with your hand there, or, kind of punching into muscles to break up the fibers to let blood flow into it. There's that fine line where, there's some intensity, but it doesn't really hurt. It feels nice. So
yeah,
it's still impact. It's just a matter of degree.
Cool. Yeah.
In terms of the DS relationship, my guesstimate from what I know is that it's kind of like everything else in terms of when you're going to have, an interaction with another person. It can be very much in a role play scenario and not. Meaning, like, it could just be two friends that deeply know each other, but it's not so much about one has to be the dominant, one has to be the submissive. Mm-hmm. Those labels can be applied, though, because I think generally it's understood that the person receiving the flogging is the submissive, and the person applying would be considered the dominant.
I can say that your estimation that's kind of the assumption.
Yeah,
that's pretty common. But it's also just as easy, like Damon said, sometimes a flogging can be just a pleasurable kind of experience. Mm-hmm. And there are dominant folks out there who, require their submissives or ask their submissives to develop that skill set because they like to get flogged. And so they're like, boy, I want you to flog me. I want to feel that today. And you complying with my order or my request that's the exchange and the expression of power. And the rest is just topping and bottoming the activity as opposed to where the power and which way that's flowing.
That's where I was going to go with it as well. Because I am one of those people who loves flogging people, but I also enjoy getting flogged. So if you...
Same for me.
Yeah, I'm totally down with that. And it was funny because last night I flogged a couple of people. I had a friend of mine, and it was two friends. Really. David was one of them, and not David Dolwood, but another David that I knew, and Brady. I actually got the opportunity to quickly flog Brady. Someone else took over, but there was no like dom sub kind of thing, and it wasn't a demo. That was the one thing I was going to say. It was hey, you've got your flogger. Why don't you flog me?
Yeah.
So.
And to be fair, like there are, I can, even outside of the realm of kink and power exchange period, like impact can be used as kind of like a bonding tool almost. Like I know that, and this is probably slightly TMI, but like when I was in fraternity, like we had paddles. And so sometimes people would be drunk and, hey, let's trade licks. It's a bonding thing. Like, this isn't even sexual. We're experiencing this. You give me a good one. Damn, that had some stank on it. You're going to get yours now, buddy. And so like there can be a bonding kind of element to it. Yeah. I know that I know some of you might know our buddy Randy up in Michigan. He's a big old spanko, and he's talked about a lot of the different reasons that people get involved in these kinds of impact situations that may have nothing to do with what we think of in like, oh my God, here's a master whipping a slave, those kind of big archetypal trope kind of situations. Sometimes it's, when I do my thing like at Midwest Bear Fest, when I would do my my group adjustment scenes, I always ask people, why are we doing this? Because the reasons can be so varied. Some people have something they need to atone for. Some people, it's just a maintenance kind of situation. Some people, it's an experiential situation. I just want to know what this feels like.
Yeah.
And so there's a host of different reasons that may or may not have a lot to do with conventional DS dynamics. And that's one of the reasons that when I'm talking just about impact itself, it's important to note that we're talking about topping and bottoming for the activity, which is not the same thing as doming or subbing for the activity.
Exactly.
Yeah, the thing I wanted to say was that I think the presumption folks make is that because it's kink, there has to be a dom and a sub. But you brought up a good point, Chess, in which it's more like, no, it's an interaction and it's more about topping and bottoming, which isn't about insertion. It's just like who's in what position, I guess.
Right.
In that case. So
active versus passive role.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
I also wanted to go back real quick. I think we've discussed it earlier in the series, but just to highlight, Damon and Chester, I think you guys made references, but you didn't use this terminology, but I think you would let the label switch apply to you in this case, meaning that you would both give and receive when it comes to this.
That is correct. Switching would definitely be a thing for me with regards to several impact play things. Because I am also, I do flog a lot, but I also like paddling and I like spanking. Thanks, Chess, for bringing that into my attention. And then
unintentional race play.
Look, it's like little chocolate chips on his ass.
Oh shit. Anyway, so I went from that to a class at COL on paddling a couple of years ago, which then really got me interested in doing this type of play. I've since bought a whole bunch of paddles and whatnot, and flogging was something I've known about for a long time. I had experienced it as the bottom. I want to say 5 or so years ago. And since then, I have gone to classes. I've experienced it. I've also trained, quote unquote, on it. And now I technically demo it usually when Scorpius does leather events. I've demoed it at Roseland a couple years. I've demoed it at several bars here and around. It's something I love doing for several different reasons. As I know we're also going on things, so yeah.
Cool. Well, why don't we talk about like the implements that are involved, more specifically to start off with, like the types. Chester, you had kind of put up some notes in the doc regarding this, if you want to take that.
I did. As Damon gets out his floggers. There's many different types of floggers, and somebody did ask us in our live chat. He gave a scenario and asked, is that considered flogging? And I told him, I said no, because flogging requires a specific tool known as a flogger. What makes a flogger is anything that has pieces that are attached to a handle. What the pieces are made of isn't important because they could be made out of anything.
Yeah. Speaking of which,
Generally speaking, when people are talking about floggers, they're speaking about leathers. But I have seen many other ones, like the kind of beads that you would find on like dog collars, dog tags. I've seen some made out of those. I've seen
Ball
some
chain.
made out of, ball chain. Strips of metal. Those are good for electro play. I have seen ones made out of rubber. I've seen one made out of rope. I have seen one made out of hose that firemen's use, that big, thick hose. I've seen those shredded up and turned into a flogger. So I wanted to bring that up because it's important to say that different materials will produce a different type of feeling. One that just talked about a few moments ago about the thud, sting, and bite. Depending on the material that your flogger is made out of, it's going to produce a very different feeling. And you could take the same person, the same velocity of their swings are going to feel different.
Did we lose Damon?
I'm on mute. There we go.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
You did.
Yeah. So yes, there are several different types of floggers, and I have, like, if you can see there, kind of. There are several different types and several different made of different things, and the reason I think I've collected certain things is because I want, for me personally, I want the I like the feel. I want to know the difference of the feel of the different tools. So, like, here is one made of bootlace, which is kind of awesome. I've yet to use this one. I've had it used on me.
What does it feel like, Damon? Why don't you describe that?
I don't know personally. I've only felt it once, and that was on. And I felt it on my hand, on my arm, because I've tried it out. But this one is definitely, if you go through the thud, sting, bite, this one kind of gives a sting and a bite in a sense. Yep. This one is another fairly new one, which I got to use last night. It's actually called a thud stinger, and Chester knows all about this one. The reason it is called that, if you can see.
Oh, is it the one with the rubber pieces?
Yeah, it has rubber and cowhide. Yeah. So I was using it last night, and the guy really loved it. So I want to use it more often.
If I could just talk briefly before you move on, Damon. Part of the reason that, like, and something that will allow people who can, look at a flogger and not know how it's going to feel on you because you've never been hit with that tool, a lot of times you can get a good idea based on what it's made of or how it's composed. For example, your bootlace one, because you're talking about a limited amount of surface area per little strand, that's going to tend to sting and bite because it's got a high amount of density for the amount of surface area that's actually going to touch you.
Yes.
Same with the thud stinger. The leather falls have a lower density than the rubber, and so they're going to hit with a little more that kind of moderate thud, but the denser rubber pieces are, because they're denser, are going to penetrate more, and so there's going to be a little more bite and sting in those falls when they hit you. So you get the combination of both.
Yeah. Yes. And then to kind of go in the unconventionals, most of these are rubber or not rubber, are different kinds of bull or cow or leather, sorry. But these are the fun ones because these are actually made of braided paracord. And these are definitely stingy. I've felt these, and I have two because I'm one of because they're small-ish, and I'm a big fan of the way that they feel when you do like a percussive back and forth on someone. So yeah. And then I finally have, because he was talking, Chester, before I ran off, was talking about how a flogger is basically something with attached to a pipe. And I have in this basket, which I've yet to open, duct tape floggers. It's
nice.
Hello Kitty duct tape, but it's duct tape floggers. They have literally been, actually, I think I can open one. There we go. God, these are terrible looking. But they have literally, someone has taken the time to take duct tape and make it into little strips. They've actually cut the edges off to make it a sharper edge at the end, and it's put together. I personally don't like these, but that is because they're so flimsy. Like, it's hard. This is small, and the things are flimsy, and it's just really hard to get a whole lot, and they wrap around each other really badly, and yeah, so. Which is why they're in a basket that will probably be auctioned off at some leather event.
Just another unconventional material. I saw one at Claw, several examples of it. You know those kind of fleece blankets, that you can just pick up for, $10, $5 or $10 or somewhere. Somebody had cut them into strips and created basically a fleece flogger. And it's kind of it kind of goes back to that question of, does it have to hurt for it to be considered impact? And the thing is not everybody needs, your braided paracord or the thud stinger. Some people just want to feel the smack, 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 but they want it to be soft and fuzzy, and it's still impact play.
Right.
Damon, you're on mute.
Yes, I have seen one made with fur. I have seen one. Oh gosh, what was it made from? I've seen them made with, like, if you want to get heavy and like rough with people, I've seen made of like chainmail.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One other classic flogger that's in kind of different material is a horsehair flogger, and it looks like this big floppy mop thing, and it's like a ponytail. And the thing is it hits with a lot of a moderate amount of thud usually, but a lot of what is intense about it is because each one of those little hairs is so fine, it kind of cuts down into the skin, and so it brings a lot of blood to the surface of the skin, and so you get a nice reddening of the area, and it creates little microscopic kind of cuts. It's good to warm up, plus you can get that stuff moving really fast, and so you get kind of a cutting sting kind of action out of it as well. Different flavors.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was at Claw this year, I went to a Flogging 101 session, and it was really good. The thing that everybody was all excited about was the electric flogger.
Oh, yeah,
which,
I've heard about that.
I don't think this is the right word to describe it, but it felt more in the area of like novelty. And I know that's not the intention, but it requires a very specific kind of use and play.
Mm-hmm.
It's by no means, I think, meant to be used for like heavy, forceful impact. It's much more about, interestingly, lighter touch. One of the DOMs that was demonstrating it had his pup on all fours with his back exposed. And so he was just literally dragging it lightly across his back. And then they had tried to, change the lighting a little bit so we could see in that. But I had never even heard of an electric flogger. So I was all like, what is this business? And then it was very, I don't know, it was just pretty interesting to see.
Our pup friend David there's I think a video from him and IML getting flogged with an electric flogger and him enjoying it. Yeah, a lot.
Nice.
Yeah. All right.
Was there anything else about flogger types, Chester, you wanted to touch on?
I was gonna Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to mention that while we were still talking about different flogger types, the the different types of leather hides will produce different feelings. Like elk is incredibly soft, whereas something like bull hide is a lot thicker, so therefore it produces a to me it feels like a bite, I guess.
That's bull hide.
Yep.
It's very thick, it's very heavy.
It's very
It carries
dense.
a lot of weight when it hits you. Yeah, dense. That's the word I'm looking for. The shapes of the falls make a huge difference. If they are thin, like the bootlace one that Damon showed earlier, that will produce more of a sting. If they are thicker, because there's a wide area hitting, it will produce more of a thud. And then lastly, the amount of falls are the actual pieces that are wound together into the handle. The amount of falls make a difference in what the feeling is that's being received. So if you have fewer falls, there's less pieces that are going to hit you, and it'll produce more of a sting. Whereas the more falls you have, the more of a wider place where you're going to get hit, that will produce a thud. That's something that I like doing, is taking two of my floggers and putting them together, because then it creates this huge mass that I'm hitting somebody with. It takes a lot of fucking work to do it, though. I'm so sore after I pick up two of them and hit somebody with them a few times. It's like swinging an axe.
Yeah. And go ahead.
The only thing I was going to ask, which is really kind of silly, is I've seen the picture posted a lot online, but I don't know how realistic it is. I think in actuality, to see the picture, it's meant to be farce. But if you were to take the tips off, which I'll explain in a second, then it seems a little bit more practical. So there's this kind of like running meme joke I've seen online of a flogger that's made out of like T3 line. If you know, like from the internet. So before everybody started going wireless, you actually had what was typically blue cable that has, like your
old Cat 5 cable.
Yeah.
It has RJ46s on the end of it.
There you go. Apparently Chess is familiar with what I'm talking about. So, but I was like I've seen it. I've kind of seen jokes about it within the IT circles. But I think that's what we'd probably call an unconventional flogger. Not what people would think of or really use, I guess, on a regular basis.
The reason that it's a joke is because of Cat 5 cable. It's like a cat of nine tails, but it's the Cat 5 cable. It's a Cat 5 of nine tails, so it's kind of the joke. The only other terminology thing that I would add to what Chester was talking about is when he's talking about falls, of this kind of a flogger that we're talking about, sometimes you'll hear people refer to a wider fall like this. This is a bull hide, and it's kind of thick. But sometimes they'll refer to them as blades. So if you hear that term, that's all sometimes referred to as a blade as well. But yeah, again, with the different types of hides, it depends on the density of the leather. Things like elk or deer skin, it's softer material, and the hide itself generally is not as dense. So it doesn't have that same kind of penetrating bite along with it. It doesn't penetrate down into the flesh for those lighter things. But the bull hide, of course, is going to have more thump to it.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I also just want to show this. This is a piece of barge rope.
Oh, good God.
Just hemp.
Oh, my gosh.
It's very...
thuddy.
It's very thuddy. There's not a lot of sting to it. You get a little bit of horsehair drag on the little fibers, but this is a fun one. It's almost all thud, and I love using it. It's a fun tool. It's one of the best. I think I spent $35 or $40 on it at Claw. Good choice. Very happy with it. I'm actually going to try to see if I can find an old maybe a baseball bat and saw it off and maybe get a slightly shorter one with that better grip. If I can, I'm not sure. Gotta find some more pictures, though.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of gets us into the next part of our little bit of an outline rundown. Chester, you had written about that implements are not necessarily limited to floggers, that you can use other things as part of flogging, so to speak.
Well, yes and no. That's not quite what I meant when I put this section in there.
Okay.
What I wanted to, why I put this section in there is because I have learned that some of the best flogging experiences come from things that aren't being used as a flogger. Meaning, when the Dom is taking a break and checking in on the sub, and they're not actually doing anything with a flogger at this point, but what they do is pick up a different impact tool and use that on the areas that they were striking. Because when you're flogging, like Chess had mentioned earlier, it's bringing up all the blood right up to your skin, and your skin is being sensitive because now it's warmed up and your muscles are warmed up and everything's been relaxed, and it's highly sensitive. So for me, I both love and hate when a Dom uses other tools on me, like a paddle or a Wartenberg wheel or a whip, for instance. I like the feeling because it's switching up those feelings and it's a change of pace, but at the same time, my own skin is so awakened at that time that I'm right on that edge of not knowing if I can handle what's happening or not.
So many people know I have nails, so I've used that often in conjunction with my flogging play. You mentioned you mentioned breath and hands. So yes, my nails are part of it. My hands, since I do it as more demo-y training, I use my hands to start the process because I need to get a feel for the back, and I'm talking with the person to figure out if there's anything medically wrong or if there's anything I need to be aware of in regards to their body, or their back, etc. So I also like to use, after I've been flogging for a while, just a simple breath on the back to kind of get that, because the blood is there. It's a different intense sensation depending on what it is. So nails are really awesome.
Yeah, I think what you guys are describing is that if you're going to be involved in a flogging session, it's not just flogging or floggers as the implements that can be a part of what that experience is. Basically, you've altered the skin or the skin surface to a point. And it's not, as a point of clarification, just so people are aware, flogging isn't about beating somebody to make them bleed. Like
Maybe.
that, right, it could be, but that's probably predetermined before you begin. But I think that's what most people think of, is if they're not familiar with it, they think that you're just beating a person. You know what I mean? Like, they probably go too extreme and they think of, like, scenes in movies or whatever where a person gets whipped. And it's like, well, that's not really the same thing. It's an aspect of it, or could be, but
I always think of Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom when that big guy is just wailing on him.
Yeah.
I have a feeling you like that scene, Chess. It's just a guess.
I liked it as a kid. I had no idea why I liked it so much.
Nice. So, just kind of a quick last item before we move on to cooldowns. Is there anything that you guys, the three of you, have as suggestions for first-time expectations?
For me,
Find somebody who's experienced.
Yeah, find someone who's experienced, because the worst thing in the world is someone who doesn't know what the fuck they're doing, especially with a actual flogger, because there are very sensitive parts of the body that are right in that area. On your sides, there's the kidneys. On your up here in the back, you have the cervical vertebrae. So you can potentially cause some issues and damage if you hit too high. You can cause physical damage if you hit too low or too high on the sides. If you don't know how long your tails, or not tails, fuck.
Balls.
Yeah, falls are, it can wrap around and hit someone in the face. So definitely be understanding. It's good to have someone who is experienced, and don't just pick up a flogger and think you can do everything. I took many classes on it and have done, pretty much everything. I won't use a flogger that I've not spent some time on, either on myself or had someone work with me on it, so that I know how it falls, how it lands, how things, how the spread of the falls goes. Because I want to know that when I'm working with someone else. For me, the other thing is, don't be afraid to try it. It is a form of impact play, and again, it can be as gentle as a back massage. It can be as rough as like someone literally punching you on the back. But that all depends on a lot of different factors, and a person who is trained and knows what they're doing will ask those questions about what you know, what you don't know, what you are looking for. They'll probably start you off gently and slowly, just so you can get a feel for it. Again, last night I had someone who had never been flogged before. His partner had, and he was unsure. And I spent like a good 5 minutes talking about like what the experience could potentially be, and I gave him like a safety word or safety action, because I couldn't hear him because it was the bar, to let me know when he wanted me to stop. And you'll definitely want that, because it can get pretty hard and heavy depending on how far you go. If you don't give that clue, they won't know, and they could potentially build up and build up and build up until you're too far.
I would say this, my outside the box observer perspective is, not only get someone who's skilled, but if anything, get recommendations. Talk to people and find out who other people have been flogged by. Like for the three of you being involved with flogging, I think knowing that, I can talk to any of you and you can give me like a handful of people to go talk to. Or better yet, and this is going to sound strange, it's kind of like references on a resume. Like if you're interested in going to someone, you can go to other people and be like, hey, can you, recommend, or would you recommend so-and-so? I'm thinking about, that kind of a thing.
Or, just ask one of us.
Yeah. So you don't have to do that, though. I don't want anyone to be misconstrued, because I've gone to like gay camp, and there's a guy, he wasn't there actually when I was just there, but he tends to be there on bare weekends if he's been there in the past, and he flogs. And it's public, it's in the camping area, the person is just, the person who's receiving is just like braced, like they put their arms out on a picnic table and they're just kind of leaning, almost like planking. And it's never very like heavy, but it usually kind of draws a crowd. Flogging makes sound. It attracts, people. And that's usually where I've seen probably the most of people trying flogging for the first time, because they don't know, they're not really sure. And in that circumstance, I don't recall this gentleman's name, but he's actually pretty decent about like, if you want to, and it's like, you don't have to keep getting hit. Like you can just get, have 1 or 2 strikes. That's it. Like whatever you feel that you can handle. Because I think what his feeling is, if I can open the door, you're on your own. Like after that, if you want to continue or not and go and that kind of stuff. So my recommendations about asking is just probably more if you want to be serious. If you want to actually have a session and you don't really know that much, then find those that do and get the recommendation about who to go to. Because I don't know how, for me, I think it's probably one of the more gateway experiences involved in kink. It seems like the thing that's the most universal, as opposed to other things with impact or that kind of stuff.
So if I could talk for just a second about the situation like that at camp, where you don't necessarily know the person, you see a demo. If you're not very familiar with flogging and you're seeing this opportunity, here it is. I don't necessarily know the person who's got their tool, but I feel like I want to do this, and you're watching this go on. Even if you can't get recommendations right there on the spot, some of the things that you can watch are something that Damon mentioned earlier, which is very important. watch where they're hitting somebody. Watch where the strike zone is. Mostly you want to be like below this spot down here in your neck. So if you see somebody hitting up high, they may not have the best control or they may not know what they're doing. Your kidneys. You don't want to see somebody who's hitting down there with your kidneys because it doesn't take a lot of penetration. You can bruise somebody's kidneys. Hitting really hard. So watch where somebody's striking. Another good thing to watch for is, as a first time, kind of like I'm viewing this as an outsider, watch the pace. See if somebody's like warming somebody up. So basically, when you first get touched by a flogger or other tool, you're going to be sensitive to it, and your body's going to have the first like jerk reaction, like it's that area is cold, it's not warmed up yet. After it's taken some for a while, you can take a harder hit, or you can take a stronger strike, or something that bites and penetrates a little harder because your nerves have gotten used to it. So if you see somebody just like lining folks up and just like wailing on them right away, that's probably not a good sign. And the third thing that I would look for if you're just kind of watching is this person like just hitting people and then saying, all right, peace, see you guys. That's not a good sign either, because there's aftercare that's necessary, even with like a casual flogging. What we were kind of referencing earlier, you're making alterations to the skin, and that you're not just bringing blood to the surface underneath the skin, you're also compressing oils out of the skin. And so the area that's getting hit can get dried out. And, somebody in a bar might not have, lotion right there to like, rub into your skin, but they should be checking with you and making sure you're okay, and should be telling people, hey, you might be dry and crunchy back there later. So make sure that you get somebody to rub stuff in there. Yeah. Oh man, if you get a really good one, your back feels literally crotchety and crunchety, and you get into the shower and it's all stingy, and you're like, fuck. And so you got to make sure it doesn't get too dried out. So if you're kind of assessing this random person in kind of a casual setting, that's another thing to look for. Like, are they talking to people after? Are they just moving them out of the way and like, next? All those things can go into like your initial assessment if you want to talk about it to somebody. Also, think about those things as a bottom who wants to step up and try something. Know what you're looking for. Talk to them and say, hey, please, let's ramp up, warm me up, please, to kind of ease you into it. If you have a particular issue with my shoulder or up my neck, or something like that, make sure that you let them know. And so those are three big areas of like immediate, like just viewing assessment, that even if you can't get a recommendation like Gary was suggesting, you can kind of assess somebody and kind of be like, hey, does this person know what they're doing or not? So
for me personally, the first time I ever witnessed flogging was actually circumstance. I was working at a campground resort, and it was a leather weekend, and a person that I had been talking to on a regular basis while I was working there, he was approached in the midst of our conversation by someone else, and they said, that they had heard that this person, does flogging, and that they would like to have time with them. And the person talking with me thought I might have an interest in leather, so they turned to me and they said, would you like to, sit in and watch? Which blew me away, because I was like, I didn't even know that was an option. So I kind of, hemmed and hawed a little bit. And then he said, all right, let me explain this. He's like, for me personally, for this, because it's going to be private, like if he agrees to you being there, here's the lowdown. Like, and so there were basically, protocol type rules. And it was, you will observe, you will not leave until it's finished, you will not talk, you will not interrupt, because to him this wasn't demo for learn, this is purely observation. So this time together, this session is about you being basically a fly on a wall and having that opportunity to watch. And I did, and I was completely mesmerized because I'd never seen anything like it before. Notably, it was not exactly in the best location as far as like lighting and that. But it was just something that I was kind of like, wow, I didn't even know that was a thing. And I kind of learned from it. So that's a whole different way to kind of experience something if you have that opportunity. And to me, that's really kind of like maybe the I don't want to say the best. It's a baby step that's up for consideration. Like if
Yeah.
you don't want to be a part of it, you can actually observe. And to me, there's a big difference between demo observation, no matter the location, and actually like
Yeah.
someone having something done. You're still observing, but it's it's different. So I was told if you have any questions, you just kind of need to like park them all until the end.
Yeah.
Which if anybody knows how I love to talk, that was challenging. But anyways.
And as one other like bit of courtesy, if you're in a bar setting and it's not like a demo up on stage or in this kind of like set apart sort of situation, and it's just like happening there next to you at a campground or wherever, make sure you give people plenty of clearance.
Oh, good
Because
God,
it's
yes.
not just straight in front of them that is in the
Yes.
way. Like all of this reaching backward, all of the recoil on the flogger, especially if it's a heavier tool, it's going to swing backwards. Be very cognizant of the entire area that the person is using to do the flogging.
Yeah.
I have people who will want to like creep up right on my back so they can like
Oh my God.
see it from my perspective, and so don't do that.
Yeah.
That's when you take your flogger and you whip it behind you.
Yeah. So.
Well, no. So we were at the bar, and again, last night, we were at the bar, and unfortunately, their space is limited. Where they had a St. Andrew's cross, but where their cross is literally less than 5 feet from a pool table, and less than like 5 feet from a doorway, and less than 5 feet from like tables.
Danger, Will
So,
Robinson.
yeah, so I was trying to be understanding. It took me out of the element only because I had to make sure I wasn't hitting and attacking anyone up and around me and behind me. So there were people playing pool. There were people, walking, past. And again, they were people that were looking. And it's always a matter, if you can't get a spotter, then you're the person who is the top doing the flogging should probably be the best person to kind of keep an eye out for people walking around, especially in a situation like that where, like you said, where it's not on a stage. The other thing is, if you are the person being flogged, if you are given a safety, whatever kind of thing, be sure to use it, but also try not to move too much. Like, because
Don't be a moving target. Don't be a moving target. It's that simple.
Because the person doing the flogging is kind of, that's how they have to like aim, basically. And if you move too much and move too far, there was a woman I was flogging last year up in Columbus who was having a conversation with the people next to her, and she tended to turn her head and talk to them, and she was moving as I was flogging, and it just became, and I had to stop because it was becoming, she was moving too much, and it became difficult to aim. It became very difficult to hit her without potentially hitting her in a place that I don't want to hit her. So, yeah.
One other little side light, since we're talking about the bar situation. Everybody has their preferences. Everybody has their desires. I generally won't hit people who are intoxicated. I don't recommend that if you're a new person to flogging, that you're like, hey, I'm drunk. Now I've got the nerve. I'm going to get up on that cross and let this person hit me. Especially if you're new, because it's going to deaden your sensations. You're not going to feel it the same way. And you may let it go on longer than what your body might be telling you, hey, that's all I can handle right now.
Yeah.
You may have repercussions the next day that you don't want, and you don't want to have a bad time. So don't have a bad experience. If you're a long-time pain pig who's been flogged every which way in Sunday, and you happen to be wasted and somebody wants to use you as a demo bottom, great. But if you're new, I can't recommend doing it while you're intoxicated, both because it'll diminish the experience for you, and plus You may move around because you're feeling a little wobbly. Hit with a bunch,
but they don't fall down.
you're going to get enough endorphins anyway. You're going to be a little loopy just from getting hit in the first place. That's not a good plan.
No.
The moving thing reminds me of I think of this when when I go get my hair cut. I don't stay stone still like a statue, but I just try not to move. Because all I keep thinking is, you've got scissors or clippers or a straight edge razor in your hand, and the last thing I need to do is move when you're not expecting me to move. So to me, that's not the same thing, but it's parallel. It's kind of hey, someone's got something in their hand and it can be harmful. So don't be all twitchy and stuff if possible.
Speaking of reactions, the one reaction that a lot of people don't expect if they're new to flogging is when you're getting hit and you're not ready for it, your body is going to have an instinctual level of response. You may have basically what amounts to a fight or flight response. Most of us in our non-violent existence, if we don't have a lot of exposure to how we react to impact, you may find yourself, if you're just trying flogging, that you suddenly are in a panic and you want nothing more than to get off of that cross or out of that situation, just run away. You may find yourself having that panic moment of flight, or you may find yourself getting angry and you want to jump off that cross and beat the shit out of whoever's swinging stuff at you. And it's okay to have those reactions, to feel that well up in you. The key is to know that it might happen and that it might come up and that you don't need to freak out about it, that it's okay for you to have that reaction, and realize that you don't have to respond to it. If you realize you can't deal with it and you have your little safe word signal or you tap out, that's fine too. But if you want to hang in there, you don't have to have a moment where you're responding to the fight or flight. You can press on through it. And there is a place past anger. There's a place past the panic where all your endorphins are kicking in and you're having a great time. But don't flip out if that happens. A lot of folks who've never had experience with flogging or other impact play will have that gut level reaction and not know what to do. They'll freak out and they'll be like, "Oh my God, I can't do this." And it's okay to communicate that to your top who's hitting you, or to just kind of take a deep breath and breathe through it. Or if you're done, just tap out and be done, and it's okay too. And that's part of another angle of the aftercare is your top should know that you may have that reaction and should try to talk to you, make sure you're okay, and want to make sure you're good. But I just wanted to mention that as another possible thing for new folks that might creep up on them without them really expecting it.
Yeah, and speaking of aftercare, we actually had a question that's continuing on in the chat, which is basically Andre had referenced about, would it be good to have a balance afterwards about, having cuddling or whatever. And the feedback has been, you really have to determine that for yourself. It should be discussed before you even begin a flogging session. Some people want it, some people don't. In my observation, I thought it was just kind of a given that you would be checked on and that it would be, different degrees of, whether or not there was body contact in that. I had not really considered until it was made apparent to me that some people don't want that. Some people don't want to kind of be held or hugged or cuddled or any of that stuff. They just want to, I guess, be alone and process through that. I don't consider myself in that camp only because that seems so siloed. To have an experience and want to just be alone, because I'm no, I think if I'm going to share this experience with somebody, I want to continue that pre, during, and post. But that's just me.
Yeah, I think go ahead, David.
No, like I said, it always depends on the person and both people. I think it often does. I'm the kind of, when I'm doing it more in teaching moments, it's aftercare in a sense of checking on them, making sure they're okay, if they need anything, checking their back to see if maybe we've hit something that could have, broken skin or what have you, just to check on that. I do like to have the person hold them for a moment if that's okay with them. But it always depends on the person.
Yeah, and the thing is, and we've talked about this in some of our other kink episodes that, aftercare is for tops too.
Yep.
And so depending on how your person who has just flogged you is, they may want to hug you, like Damon said, or they may just want to respond to what you need. If you're a new person and you're like, I don't know how I'm going to fucking react. I'm going to walk up. I'm going to try this out. The only thing that I can tell you is be authentic in expressing what you need afterwards. If you just need to sit down and have some water and just like feel your body humming, like that's okay. If you need a hug to feel like, all right, this is okay, and you get yourself into a place where you're emotionally all right, that's good. If some tops may want to like contact you later and like check in on you, I'm kind of like a check-in, like we'll do the check-in right there at the end if it's a casual situation. I may want to like say, here's my number. If you feel weird about this in a day or two and you want to talk about it, let's talk about it. So be responsive to your top, because the aftercare is for them too. But also be very authentic about what you feel like you need. If you need them to sit there with you for a minute and just like talk to you while you're coming back, that's okay. Just try to think about what you might think you need, but in the moment, be clear with whoever it is like, please just sit here with me a second, or whatever it is. And if it is a more, hey, I've come over to somebody's house, and it's not a big public scene like that, check in and be like, hey, afterwards, like, hey, do you have some lotion you can rub into my back? And that can be very therapeutic as well. Just that kind of touch to kind of like hand stuff back over.
Yeah. All right.
Since we talked a lot about the folks who just want to try it out from the bottom side, for folks who they don't feel confident swinging a flogger, let's say you picked one up or inherited one somewhere, practice swinging that shit around. Hit a pillow. You can see back over my. I've got a pillow back over there against the wall that I set up on a stool because it sits right at about the right height. If I'm working on targeting, practicing strike zone, I use it mostly for my whips, but swing it around. Let something get your arm used to making those motions, because at first everybody's just slinging around and just flopping, and kind of what Damon was talking about, seeing how each individual tool responds to your motions. Like feel that all out before you start slinging it at somebody, and it's okay. It's okay to do that.
Definitely cool. Definitely, practice makes perfect, or at least better.
It does.
And with that, I think we're ready to move into cool down topics.
So let's do this. Built tough. That was the original thing, and it's no dick, but nice belly, nice beard. Just the overall stocky dude. It's hot.
Yeah.
I just like this because I liked it.
Man, I'm looking at the I like the character. I'm now trying to figure out where he is. 'Cause I'm seeing a downtown-ish area or building in the background, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. It's a great picture. A nice semi-profile kind of look. Yeah, nice, definitely nice beard. All right.
Yes, you're the only comments. Damon?
Hotel lighting. Bear Willie, I think, is this guy. And he took some. He says in the picture, like, hotel rooms always seem to have great lighting for selfies. And since many of you have asked about my dick, I threw in a little tease. And he's a nicely built cubby bear with a collar, which is kind of cool. I like his tattoo. He's furry and he's in a nice jock. Yeah, definitely looking like a jock, but it could be thong or whatever. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And he's giving us a little show.
Peekaboo.
Yeah.
He's hairy.
Yes, he is. Very cute.
Okay, for the record, I did not say, hey Siri. I said, he's hairy. Damn
Nice.
technology.
And how many other people's Siri did you just set up?
Chester.
I titled mine Christmas Gift Exchange, and it's a photo set starring yours truly.
Ooh.
And my friend Ash, I believe, Chess, you know Ash.
Oh yeah, I know exactly who it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ash came up to my place when I lived in North Dakota over Christmas, and we had a little flogging session in my dungeon.
Interesting. Aw.
Sure.
All right, so now I have to ask. Oh, Northern County. I was like, who took the photos? Because at first I thought they were just like on a timer, like you had a tripod or something, and you were just like maybe using a fob. But I see now.
Aw. It's a really good set, and it actually. Oh, okay, that's cool. I just noticed that you have plugs in your ears.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I do that in my, well, I did it in my dungeon in North Dakota because it was a 12 by 12 room in a basement, and the ceiling was not a normal height ceiling. It was brought down, and it echoes a lot in there. So any kind of impact play that goes on, it's really loud and sharp in your eardrum. So I typically I always had a box of earplugs up with the rest of my gear, and I would always offer them to people that were playing, and I would always put them in myself if people were doing impact play. Yeah.
I'm curious because that's something I'm curious. I think I would actually like the reverb. I don't know. I'm thinking about it, and there's a part of me that feels like I would.
It's a really sharp, loud noise, like metal hitting cement. And for me, I can't stand that noise.
And sometimes you
Gives
can
me
get
a
that.
headache.
You can also get that sound physically from the actual vibrations of the sound versus the actual, like, hearing it through your ears. So
I will say that one other thing about the earplugs. Sometimes earplugs or a blindfold can help the person who's being flogged kind of retreat into themselves a bit.
Yep.
Because you can hear your own response, your own breathing very clearly when your ears are plugged, and also when you have kind of your sight shut out, you can really like focus on just the tactile experience better, and or just your overall reactive experience better.
So, and my favorite picture is actually the last one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's just. I like that it's the flogger is kind of still in his hand, but there's just a lot of things going on in that picture that is really awesome. Gary,
I think my favorite one is when Chester's looking down and has that little bit of anguish in his eyebrows clenched together.
You can't really tell in this photo, but if you can zoom in on my eye, I've got some tear going on.
Yeah. That's the moment. Like that's the real response that I'm looking at right there. I like it.
Yeah.
Oh, I see it.
That's that moment where I'm getting broke.
Yeah.
Oh.
Good times.
All right. And now for something completely different, Gary.
Yeah, so like there's sort of a theme amongst the three of you on your selection of Tumblr pics this week, and mine is not that at all. Mine is quite comical because it amused me to no end. Two people that we know that have been on the show are culprits in this series in which someone stayed at someone else's house. And so it didn't have an official title-ish, so I called it Guest Room Alarm. And it says, I found a Tibbers in my guest bedroom and had to wake him up by placing my balls on his face. Quite effective. So I was highly amused by this concept that someone would use their nuts to wake somebody else up in the morning. So
That's funny.
Oh my God.
I can offer to be an alarm clock for whomever.
You wake up and then you just start licking.
Depending on who's being the alarm clock, I might just want to sleep in.
I really appreciate the kind of like one-eyed stank eye that Tim thing afterwards.
Yeah.
He's like, looking up like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I dig it.
Yeah.
I am not amused.
Yeah. I saw them last night. It was kind of fun. It was good to see them and run into them this weekend and last weekend.
nice.
Yeah.
Chess, what about your Tumblr pic?
My Tumblr pic is a little bit in the same vein as the one that Chester put up. It's the fourth set of a series called Penetration and Dirt. It was an art project that I did with Slave Drew and one of our photographer friends and Sir Marcos that we did in a public setting. It was this whole situation where Drew like smashed a stick and like was playing all this angry punk music, and we kind of did this takedown sort of situation where I strung him up with cuffs, and what you can see in there is not actually a flogger, but it's a cat of nine tails whip called a tomcat whip. But it's very flogger-like in many ways, and you can just kind of see the interactions. You can go back and see the other sets too if you want, but it's I like it a lot because kind of at the end, that last, I love him stretched out like a piece of meat in all those harsh lighting conditions, but that last one where I'm kind of holding him, helping him come back, and you can kind of see all the marks on his back from it. And it's a good set.
Yeah.
And Drew can really take it too, so.
Yeah. That was definitely a negotiated blah 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 scene. This was
all of that was very much, and we had an audience. Like it was a significant number of folks who were watching us in this scene, but it had been planned for a couple of months in advance. And again, it wasn't ultimately an art project, but some of Drew's reactions that Marcos captured were really amazing. So.
Over in the live chat, Andre said, I like the last picture of the penetration set.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It is a good one. Because I one of the favorite things I like about chess is your shitting grin in a sense. Sometimes it's just very it shows that you are enjoying yourself, which some people don't really take into consideration, especially in an impact play scene. They don't take that the fact that the person usually giving the top is part of the reason why they're doing it is because they like doing it.
Oh yeah.
So
if you look back at some of the the Midwest Bear Fest paddling stuff that Chester took pictures of, like there's a couple of them where I'm literally just like holding the paddle. I'm like, oh yeah.
Yep.
Like you can just see me enjoying it. And yeah, it's something I do because I enjoy the physicality of it. Because it's a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
I like to hit people. It's fun.
In a perfectly consensual way, of course.
Of course.
Moving on into the links. So one of the things I've been binge watching lately Netflix has seasons 2 and 3 of Lie to Me, an old Tim Roth TV show. It's a procedural drama. Tim Roth plays Cal Lightman, who is a deception expert.
I remember this show.
He reads faces. Actually, just earlier today, one of the episodes actually got me a little bit teary-eyed because it was so sweet. I think it was something about it was called Pied Piper, and it starts off with an execution of someone who Cal and his ex-wife had helped to convict years earlier, and the guy's last words was saying that the Pied Piper actually did it. I didn't. I'm an innocent man. And Cal was like, after reading his face, is like, nope, he told the truth. We got it wrong. Stop. But it was too late. And the Pied Piper starts striking again.
Bum, bum, bum.
So, and it was just very powerful thing where I actually started crying. It's such a good show, in my humble opinion. So I think you could check it out. So if you got Netflix, check it out. Might be on other streaming things, but there you go.
Sweet.
Damon, what do you got?
Nothing.
Okay, never mind. Chester, what do you got?
Since we're talking about floggers, I posted a link to Bear Leatherworks where I get all of my floggers from. They're incredibly well made. There's a variety of styles and sizes, and they're made out of different types of leather. And he's also the main supplier of floggers for Mr. S Leather, so you know it is some damn good quality.
That's where these are from. And I actually got
just to make sure it's Bear, B-A-R-E.
And the link will be in the show notes too, if you want to.
Yeah.
Just go to our website.
They do these master grip things, which are awesome. Yeah.
Cool. My pick is, if you haven't seen it / heard it yet, Kink, the artist, released a single from her forthcoming album that's coming out in October. Her single is What About Us? And I'm just really addicted to it. I've listened to it every morning now when I wake up. The lyric video is out there. The actual video is going to get dropped pretty soon, from what I understand. She hasn't released an album in a couple of years, and people have been wondering what's going on. I mean, she's had, she's got stuff. She's got a life, spouse, kids, that kind of stuff. But I just really like what she does. She somehow evokes, at least for me, kind of a sense of an opinion about circumstance. And the song is so crazy in terms of, application. I think a lot of people right now are potentially taking it as, people in society are saying, what about us? What about what we were supposed to be promised and, what our lives would be like? But I think it can be used oddly, in a different level. You could see it as a person asking something that they believe in, if they believe in God, that type of a thing, in sense of a spirituality. You can also see it as a person asking their partner, and if they were in a relationship, meaning what about us as a relationship. I think it's got a lot of layers to it. Potentially it can be applied. So I'm just totally addicted to listening to it. So it's my recommendation if you go check it out. It's a little bit anthemish. So I definitely see some dance mix in that coming out of it for the club scene and those type of things.
I'm slightly disappointed that it's not a cover of the Michael Jackson song. Slightly. Just a little bit. Anyways, moving on.
Let's see. The one that I've linked to is actually a post that I did on Tumblr maybe about 3.5 years ago, opposite of Fuzzbutt. He kind of did a impact from the bottom sort of post, and I did the flip side. it has a lot of the stuff that we've talked about in here today. If people want to go back and kind of review it, it's most of my thoughts on Impact are pretty much the same as they were then, but there's some other stuff that's not included in there that we've talked about today.
Sweet.
It made me think of one other terminology thing that occasionally people will hear of something called Florentine flogging. That's usually when somebody takes like 2 floggers and they're doing almost like what you've seen me do with like poi, and they're like hitting somebody with a flogger in each hand back and forth. So yes, like what Damon's got there. Yeah. And you don't always see floggers that are attached to like a fixed handle. Like we've seen in most of these. This is one of my ones that I use for a Florentine flogging. It's got kind of a split grip for your fingers because it gets better rotation. It's got a swivel right there. So occasionally you see that. If you see somebody say the word Florentine, just that way you know what that is. But that link goes to more information.
Sweet.
Yeah, so Florentine is making like a reference to Italy, I'm thinking.
I would assume.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of historical background knowledge on why it's called Florentine.
Well, I just want to make sure people understand that it's one word. It's not floor routine. Because when I was at Claw and we were in the Flogging 101 session, they were verbally saying, and I could tell. And then they didn't make a correction, but they made sure that everyone was aware, like that it's a like an adjective description, like not. Yeah. It's not gymnastics. You know, like people see the Olympics and they think of the floor routine with a ribbon. That's not it at all.
No. It is Florentine.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I would have never thought of that until now.
And and I know there are some YouTube videos for the folks who are YouTube happy. You can get out there and find videos of Florentine flogging just so you can see it in action. I'm not as good at it as some folks, even though my poi stuff is good, just because I'm too broad. And so like I'm not narrow enough to like get them into an even enough stroke. So unless I'm working with a wide canvas, a wide back for me to work on, I have a little less control on my targeting because I have to move my body with every single stroke.
Nice. Hey, guess what, folks? That's the end. Aww.
The end.
Play ways to contact us. Pop over to our website, Cubs Out Loud. Shoot us an email at cubsoutloud@gmail.com. Leave us a voicemail, sexy or otherwise, at 361-COL-TALK. That's 361-265-8255. You can follow us on Facebook, Tumblr, Twitter, Google+, YouTube at Cubs Out Loud, the appropriate place of the URL. You can also join us in our COL Entourage groups, COL Entourage and BearUnderground.net, and as well as the Cubs Out Loud Entourage and Bear Underground, COL Entourage on Facebook. If you listen to us on iTunes, rate us there. You can also subscribe to us on Google Play Podcasts. Give us a thumbs up on Stitcher Radio. You can find me anywhere on the internet. It's Box, Puppy Box, Cub Box, something or other. Now I'm totally distracted by Justin Shirtless.
Yeah. Like, wait, what? Oh, I am Theater Cub 79 on Bear Underground, Tumblr, Growler, Facebook, etc. Or you can find me as pup_umbra on Twitter.
You can find me on Tumblr or Twitter under the name The Pup Up There, in the corner of a CD leather bar flogging someone, or various bear dating sites across the net under the name Pup Shutter or Cupcake76.
Nice. If you need to find me, it's pretty much anywhere online as GareBear73. Chess? Where can they find you?
I'm Foxbear on Tumblr, Growler, FetLife, Photocracy, and elsewhere. So people can find me. Congratulations to everybody who stayed to the end.
And with that, say good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Have a good one, y'all. Nice.